Hi, everyone. Welcome in. Let's see who's here. Do I have to invite everybody? Oh, no, they're here. Okay.
Hello, welcome.
As everybody joins in, we have 11 people here so far. Perfect. Well, welcome, everybody. We're here. This is Christy and Amy from Raffle Functional Wellness, and we are going to be talking about metabolism, insulin, and GLP-1s. But before we get started, I had a couple questions that I wanted to ask you. So if you could introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining from first. Then in the chat box, I'm going to ask you a question and a couple questions. The first one is, which tells you more about your metabolic health? The number on the scale or your fasting insulin level?
Oh, you did it. You typed it in too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was typing it in.
Good job.
Can everybody, I can't see anybody for some reason because it's like, can you see everybody that's joined, Christy?
Let me go. Attendees. Yes. I can't see their faces.
You
Hi,
can see their names and
Michelle.
stuff.
Yep, Ashley, Mama. My mom is my biggest fan. I have to say. She joins all the things.
Okay.
Leslie, Nicole. Hello, everybody. Sherry. Good to see everybody.
Okay, for Christy, you see in your chat box where it says to everybody,
Hmm.
yours says in that blue box, yours is only going to host and panelists. So if you change that to everybody, then everybody can see what you're chatting. Do you see
For
that up?
me,
Yes, for you.
mine says hosts and panelists.
Yeah, but that means only I can see it.
My other option is only to host.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yours says to everyone. I don't know why mine doesn't.
Okay.
I only have two options, host and panelists and Amy.
All right. Well, in the chat, if you guys could text A or B of what you think the answer is, which tells you more about your metabolic health? The number on the scale or your fasting insulin level?
I wonder if there's any issues with the messaging
I swear we always run into the same thing.
because that happened before, didn't it?
Oh, wait. Maybe I fixed it. There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
my mom said
Sorry,
chat
guys.
disable.
I don't know why they always like automatically not let us talk. I was like, it's a webinar. It should be set up correctly. Okay. Okay, so yes.
We got some
Number-
smart people.
Yes, you guys are great. The number on the scale does not matter. It's your fasting insulin. Okay, and the next one, I'm going to kind of put them all out there. So the next one we're going to do is how many of you have had a normal blood sugar level tested, but never had your fasting insulin tested? Because that's common. Like we'll do a CMP, comprehensive metabolic profile on your yearly physical, and your fat glucose is normal within normal limits. It could be like 99, and we'll say it's normal. But have you ever had a fasting insulin tested? I guess just write yes or no to that one. Yep, well, just a lot of normal blood sugars. Oh, Sherry's got a yes. Not sure on some. Yeah, it's not commonly tested, but it should be tested to truly see what your metabolism is doing. And another question is, which one improves metabolism more? A 45 minutes of cardio, or B, building 5 pounds of muscle? Let's see if they can get this one.
It's actually a tough one.
Yeah, so B, I would say it's B, right? Well, obviously, like only 5 pounds of muscle isn't, but gaining 5 pounds of muscle or building your muscle is going to help with more insulin sensitivity than just doing 45 minutes of cardio without building muscle. However, walking or doing cardiovascular exercise does help lower your glucose as well. So I guess that could be both of them.
Well, this day and age, cardio is so ingrained in our head, I think even as women, how important it is, but we know when the adrenal system is off, sometimes cardio isn't the best exercise for certain individuals.
Yep. All right, and our last question, which one raises insulin more over time? Eating 200 extra calories a day or chronic stress?
These must be all of our patients because they all know the answer.
Well, you kind of gave this one away too. You just said it. Yes, stress is going to add more issues than eating the extra 200 calories a day. All right. Well, what we're going to go over today is we're going to talk about your metabolism, what insulin resistance is, and what are GLP-1s and peptides. If you guys all stay to the end, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a link to this free guide. It's called 7 Steps to Lose 10 Pounds in 8 Weeks. And it's a great guide that I use for my clients that want to improve their metabolism and their insulin resistance. And I'm going to pass it over to Christy, and she's going to talk about metabolism and insulin resistance next.
So, yeah, can you get rid of? Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
That's
I
okay.
didn't know I
I
was
thought
there.
maybe it was something I was trying to click on it, and I'm like, it doesn't do anything when I click on it. So, the reality is, in our culture right now, the typical modern lifestyle tends to be very poor in nutrient density with very little fruits and vegetables. We have an abundance of highly processed foods, sugar, preservatives, trans fats, and chemical additives, as well as being hormone and drug-laden animal foods. The protein sources from animals is, heavily injected with hormones and other antibiotics and things like that, plus fewer minerals due to topsoil erosion. Also, high stress, low sleep, and numbing recreation. A lot of people, when you ask them what they do to relax, we say things like watch TV. It's not actually true restorative relaxation because you're still watching something, you're still thinking about something, your brain is still being activated. True relaxation techniques involve, things like meditation or stretching or deep breathing or something where you're really trying to calm down the nervous system. And TV with the lights and the activity and the talking, you're still active. It's just kind of zoning out. Plus, unprecedented exposure to toxins. Toxic levels just keep going up and up in the air, water, food, glyphosates, heavy metals, medications, personal hygiene products, beauty products, as we know, a growing risk of infections, things like the COVID infection, superbugs, lots of viruses now. Immune systems are being impaired because of toxins and chronic stress. And also this obsession with germ-free living. Those of us that are aware of this are trying to be a little bit better, but bleaching everything and obsessively washing our hands and not letting our kids play outside, it's actually doing us a disservice in the long run when it comes to strengthening and supporting our immune system and building up resistance. So when Amy and I are working with patients on optimizing their health, we're always thinking about these three things. What can we maximize for this individual? So what does this unique person need for their body in order for them to heal and function properly? What are the raw materials? Things like water, oxygen, vitamins, nutrients, minerals, protein, healthy fats, but also that belief system that you can get better. I think a lot of what we do is also coaching and just trying to encourage people that there is hope, that we can feel good, we can feel excellent, we can feel fantastic. We don't have to just settle for feeling okay Or on the other side of that, a lot of people feel like they're going to be stuck in whatever disease process they had. So just helping them have that hope that they can get better and then minimizing the things that are harmful to the person. So, taking away the toxins, the infections, allergens, stress, trauma, and also those limiting beliefs like fear and negative expectations, or we call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. Those we really need to minimize those and maximize more positive thinking, and then prioritize a healing environment for that person, like good rest, sleep, laughter, stress reduction, exercise, breathing, meaningful relationships, mindfulness, and these positive expectations. And then once we do that, the body will naturally heal itself because the body naturally seeks wellness. So when we're looking at just like, and these are what macronutrients, if anyone's ever counted macronutrients, this is essentially what we're looking at. What does the body need to fuel the cell? Every single cell in our body is constantly doing a process of, we call it the citric acid cycle, methylation, the electron transport chain. All these things are happening within the cell to make energy. At the end, on the left-hand side here, we have eat the food, digest the food. We have to digest it properly, get those nutrients into the blood, get it into the cell. And then we have the cellular metabolism or respiration, which makes ATP. ATP is the fuel that gets the body moving. And so the macros that we need are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So the body can use either one of those three nutrients to get to ATP. But each process, and in certain individuals, we can prioritize or do better with protein over carbohydrates or fat over carbohydrates. So the body can use either one in isolation, but some individuals work more efficiently when they're focusing more on like a high protein, high fat diet and a lower carbohydrate diet. Other people find that they need to have a little bit more carbohydrates, or else their blood sugar bottoms out, or they don't feel as energized. And so, what Amy and I do is we do a very good assessment on individuals. We look at their blood work and we determine things like what is the insulin, what is the cortisol. So, everything in purple there are the hormones, because your hormone levels are going to influence how well your body is able to metabolize that protein or that carbohydrate. Um, and so, this is a process that we're thinking about and trying to help individuals prioritize what is their best diet to fuel their cells and give their body the maximized energy. So when we're looking at the glucose dynamics and where dysfunction happens, we have to, I always think about, where we came from and like just we're an organism. So the human body and physiology has evolved in an environment where food wasn't always available. And so, when we were cavemen, we didn't always have a pantry, in the backyard. And so our brain needs fuel. And so in order to promote survival, our bodies have developed where when we have an excess of nutrients, we store it because we don't know when the next famine is going to happen. Well, metabolic dysfunction happens when there's a disconnect between our lifestyle choices and our body's wisdom. And so again, when we break it down, Amy and I are always looking at things like crap food. What are the food that you're eating? Is there a lot of highly refined and excessive carbohydrates like sugar and fructose, especially, or just an overall food excess? In America, we have all these things available. So sometimes we just eat a lot, even if it's protein or a healthy fat. Like some of us we like to eat. Eating's fun, eating's enjoyable. And so sometimes we just tend to eat too much food in general. The other thing is toxins, which do promote mitochondrial dysfunction. It damages the cell membranes, which is where the action is happening with the hormones, which I'll show you here in a little bit. And it increases the burden on the liver system, the hepatic biliary system. So the liver is our detox organ. So toxins inadvertently are going to impair our liver health. And then lastly, stress, which does increase blood sugar. Um, and it does promote sedentary lifestyle and sleep deprivation. This promotes high glycemic foods and less fasting, which I'll show you this cycle here in a little bit. on how we can end up getting into this vicious cycle of we don't feel good. And so then we eat to get energy, but then we crash and it's just this vicious cycle. And then also, 20, 30 years ago, especially when I was little, I remember, low fat was really big. Everybody was about low fat and that was really popular, but we didn't differentiate between things like um, pasta carbohydrate versus like apple or broccoli carbohydrate. And so it was all about the fat, and we traded butter and cheese for things like sugar and flour. And then we noticed that the metabolic dysfunction continued to rise, in addition to just fewer whole grain fruits and vegetables, or whole fruits and vegetables, not grain. We were just eating less and less fruits and vegetables in general. So, insulin resistance is something we're going to talk a lot about. And at the upper right, or I'm sorry, upper left corner, we have a cell membrane. So this yellow part here is a cell membrane. So every single cell in our body has this lipid membrane, and it's made from fat. So we need fat. Fat is really important. And then we have these little red and blue balls, and the red is glucose and the blue is insulin. And in order to get glucose into the cell, we have to have insulin as a carrier. And then we have these insulin receptors, and then the glucose is going into the cell. And then the cell uses that glucose for energy. Well, with insulin resistance, we have these receptor sites that are becoming resistant to insulin because the cell is full. So we can only jam so much glucose into a cell before the cell's like, hey, I'm full. I don't need any more. So then more and more sugar ends up in circulation, and then that's stored as fat via the liver synthesis of triglycerides. So when triglycerides are going up, it's not an issue with that individual having too much fat. It's actually too much glucose, especially fructose. So insulin resistance develops in the large muscles of the legs first. So chronic sitting is a significant part of the problem. And again, as Americans, many of us, like myself, tend to have desk jobs. And so we're not using those leg muscles efficiently, and insulin resistance can happen. So improving, on the other side, improving muscle mass is going to improve insulin sensitivity. So insulin resistance interconnectedness. So the pancreas is the organ that secretes insulin. And as our demand goes up, so as typical American diet, we're eating carbs and sugars. Breakfast was cereal, lunch was a sandwich, dinner was spaghetti, snacks were crackers or chips or something like that. So the pancreas is like, all right, buddy, I got you. And it's just going to make more and more insulin to try to cram that glucose into the cells. This promotes greater glucose into the cells, which can look good in lab work. So for many, many years, we're going to see glucose is going to look fine, but insulin is going up. So, what's coming first? High insulin, obesity, fatty liver? Well, it depends. So, with high insulin, glucose is getting into the cell, or else the cell would be starved, but the body is making more and more fat or adipose because it's trying to store that extra glucose. So then the fat also becomes insulin resistance and is releasing free fatty acid and inflammatory mediators. So now we have insulin resistance, and we also have this inflammatory response that's happening. And interestingly, 70 to 80% of those that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes also have evidence of fatty liver disease, or they're calling it now non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So, how do we treat it? By driving down blood sugar in medicine. Well, this can actually exacerbate the actual root cause. So, when we start seeing blood sugar goes up, sometimes physicians will give the individual insulin. Well, they already have an insulin of like 50. So, just giving them insulin is not going to improve the problem. And actually, insulin promotes fat or adipose tissue. And so there's this quote here. It says, I can make you fat. Actually, I can make anybody fat. How? It's really quite simple. I prescribe insulin. Excess insulin causes weight gain and obesity. So the answer is not going to be just give somebody more and more insulin to try to drive the sugar down. The cell is full. The cell doesn't want any more glucose. We have to drive the glucose down and we have to treat the metabolic dysfunction. We have to treat the root cause. So this is just some interesting studies. One study gave an extra 1,000 calories of sugary snacks to a group of overweight patients. It included small bags of candy, pineapple juice, sweetened soda, a sports drink, which isn't very unusual. 3 weeks of this. Body weight increased by 2%. Liver fat increased by 27%. So fat is deposited in the liver. That makes the liver not work as good. We don't
Okay.
want organs that aren't working well. And the liver enzymes increased by 30%. That's huge. And when the diet returned to normal, over time, all of those things were reversed. And another study, they were given an equal amount of fructose. So this is high fructose corn syrup. So when we're educating people on, how to eat healthy, one of the top four things that we say is don't eat high fructose corn syrup. It's manufactured, it's not real sugar, and it increases liver fat. And in this study, it increased it by 38% in 8 days. And similar studies have been repeated. So, the root cause seems pretty evident. So the sooner we reverse root causes through lifestyle change, the less oxidative damage will occur. So oxidative damage, I liken that to like a fire. It's oxidation, it's inflammation in the body. Sorry about that. I'm gonna shut the door. And so, speaking of oxidation, the truth of the matter is more and more of us are on fire. Nearly 40 million American adults with type 2 diabetes and 100 million more with pre-diabetes or subclinical. But there's also likely a ton that don't know they have it because they're not being evaluated for it. So these are diagnosed by progressively increasing blood sugar levels. Like Amy was saying, when they do a CMP and they're just getting a fasting glucose, right? A lot of times they're not even getting an A1C, and an A1C is a marker of blood sugar over 3 months' time. So the reference range for that is 4 to 5.6. Prediabetes is 5.7 to 6.4. And we're not even able to diagnose diabetes until it's 6.5 or above. Um, but in some cases, the A1C and the fasting glucose don't always align, and it's affected by the individual's cortisol awakening response. So sometimes you can have an elevated glucose in the morning because of cortisol, but your A1C can still be optimal. So that's like a separate issue that has to deal with stress and your adrenals. Um, But the truth of the matter is that these dynamics occur many, many years before diagnosis is even, or before diabetes diagnosis is even made. And so there's decades of opportunity that Amy and I are trying to identify in individuals to assess it before it becomes full-blown metabolic dysfunction. So why wait until someone's A1C is 6.5 to start having the conversation? Or, for us, we're looking at A1Cs of 5.5, 5.6, 5.7. Those are all warning signs that things are going in the wrong direction and we're dealing with this entrenched metabolic dysfunction. And feel free, anybody, to ask questions along the way if there's any questions. I do have the chat box open. Um, so to keep things simple, this is what I was referring to, this vicious cycle of insulin resistance. So we eat refined or excess carbohydrates. Very easy to do. Plus, we're chronically stressed, which increases cortisol, which increases blood sugar, which is going to have to increase insulin. And then we're sedentary more often than not. And then we have this toxic exposure. So crap food, stress, and toxins. So glucose goes up. The pancreas makes a lot of insulin to handle the glucose. Over time, the cell is resistant to the effects of that insulin, so the level just gets higher. Glucose continues to rise. Excess sugar gets stored as body fat. And then we feel weak, we feel hungry, we feel tired, we get more body fat. Well, what do we do when we're weak and tired and we don't feel good? We eat more carbs. we're more stressed. We sit more because we don't feel good. And the cycle continues. So the body is simply adapting to the life in which we are asking it to try to thrive. And there's four stages of this metabolic dysfunction disease process. Modern lifestyle choices that has increase in glucose and fructose load in the diet plus stress. Being sedentary increases the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and fat in the skeletal muscle and maybe not inflammation yet. Then once we start seeing high insulin going up, with sustained high sugar diet, fasting insulin continues to go up, triglycerides start to go up, increased fat in the liver. Now we might start seeing hypoglycemic episodes, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Stress hormones grow up, cravings increase because blood sugar's dropping. So now it's like, I gotta eat sugar, I gotta have something. Then we have escalating diabetes that sustain lifestyles that sustain high sugar, higher triglycerides. Now we have cell dysfunction. So now the pancreas is like, I can't keep up with you. I can't make enough insulin anymore. We get things like leptin resistance. So there's no hunger signal that says we're full, stop eating. So we continue to overeat. And then full-blown metabolic syndrome, which metabolic syndrome is a word that we use with a couple diagnoses like high blood sugar or diabetes, hyperlipidemia or high cholesterol, high blood pressure. The arterial plaque starts to develop, so blood pressure starts to go up, fatty liver disease, and obesity. So, usually around stage two of metabolic dysfunction, what's happening is the insulin is going up, and there's an imbalance of when the insulin peaks and the blood sugar peaks, and the blood sugar, especially if we're eating a simple carbohydrate that's in and out, like bread, like white bread in the morning. Let's say we have cereal for breakfast, and blood sugar will go up, and insulin will go up, and blood sugar will tank, and insulin still hanging out. In this diagram on the bottom left, we can see that the green insulin is still hanging out here around hour two, and then the blood sugar starts to dip. So the blood sugar or the insulin was higher than the blood sugar. Now we have hypoglycemia and we feel like we need to eat again. Well, that's actually because this individual is having stage two metabolic dysfunction, and sometimes low cortisol may even be a contributing factor to that. So when people are making these claims like, oh, everybody needs to fast, or everybody should do a 24-hour fast or an 18-hour fast, Amy and I over here, like we try not to make these with these broad generalizations because not for everybody. Sometimes a prolonged fast isn't for that particular individual because they may be dealing with something like this. If they have low cortisol and they have super high insulin, that ain't the way to go. We want to stabilize their blood sugars. We want to hold their blood sugars through the day so that they can have sustained energy, so that they can sleep at night because blood sugars will sometimes drop at 2, 3 a.m. Then they're waking up at 4 a.m., with this cortisol spike because their body's just trying to keep them alive because their blood sugar dropped down to 50. So this is just a quick diagram of the four stages of metabolic dysfunction. Stage one, insulin starts going up. Using excess metabolic fuel, we're getting more body fat, a little bit of fatty liver, and oxidative stress. And Amy and I are looking at the root causes. Is there increased carb intake, sugar, alcohol, being sedentary, thyroid function, especially hypothyroidism is a huge one. Family history, genetics are at play here. Um, Chronic high stress, insulin resistance, low-grade chronic inflammation, and nutrients are a big one. We're looking at magnesium, the B vitamins, vitamin C, iron, things like that. Then we have stage two, where insulin continues to go up. They're getting the hypoglycemic episodes, worsened dietary changes, more body fat, leptin resistance. So the hunger cues start going away. Stage three, now we're starting to see the A1C going up and glucose is spilling into the cell. That's going to cause even more inflammation, higher triglycerides, more muscle fat, more fatty liver, oxidation, higher blood pressure, and then full-blown stage four is when we start to see, the pancreas is like, I'm done, I can't do it. It's not making the insulin now. Higher likelihood of gut imbalances and full-blown metabolic dysfunction, which also increases your risk, unfortunately, of cancer, kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, and
Mhm.
Alzheimer's.
All right. Thanks, Christy. Okay, so now we're gonna dive into GLP-1s and how they help insulin sensitivity and leptin resistance, which Chrissy was just talking about. So I've personally been through weight struggles since I've had my three babies, despite doing all the things right, clean eating, working out, trying all the programs. What helped me the most wasn't more willpower, just grinding through the workouts, but it was addressing root causes like gut inflammation, adrenal burnout, low muscle mass, and using GLP-1s and GIP peptides as support tools. These meds didn't fix me, they just supported me while I rebuilt my metabolism. So, what are GLP-1s and GIP peptides? So, it's not foreign to your body. It's a hormone your gut naturally releases after you eat. So, when you eat, a GLP-1 does several important things. First, it signals your brain that you're full. It works on the hypothalamus and strengthens satiety signals. This is why people say that food noise decreases. The second thing it does is it improves insulin signaling. It tells your pancreas to release insulin, but only when glucose is present. That means better blood sugar control and less resistance over time. It also lowers glucagon, which prevents your liver from dumping excess glucose. Third, it slows gastric emptying. So food leaves your stomach more slowly, which reduces blood sugar spikes and keeps you fuller longer. And beyond that, the GLP-1 receptors are found in the brain, the heart, the pancreas, the gut, and fat tissue. So it influences inflammation, cardiovascular markers, and metabolic flexibility. So it's improving metabolic signaling. That's why dose matters, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So too high of a dose, and you suppress appetite so much that you can lose muscle. So GLP-1 isn't like the metabolism, it's a tool that helps correct the signaling if the rest of the system is supported correctly. The other part is GIP, that's another type of peptide, and it stands for glucose-dependent insulin-tropic polypeptide. And it's a hormone your gut releases when you eat, just like the GLP-1. Its primary role is to stimulate insulin release when glucose is present, but beyond that, it also influences how fat cells store and use energy. GIPs play a role in nutrient partitioning, meaning it helps determine whether calories are stored, burned, or used efficiently. So, Christy kind of already went into this, but I just want to go over the hunger hormones that we have. Leptin is your fullness hormone. It's made by fat cells and tells your brain you've had enough food. The problem in many adults, especially with insulin resistance, is leptin resistance. You have leptin, your brain just isn't responding to it. GLP-1s help improve leptin sensitivity. It helps restore the brain's ability to recognize that fullness signal again. And ghrelin, the other one, is another hunger hormone. It rises when you skip meals, don't sleep, or are under stress. It's what drives craving and food noise. So your ghrelin could be really high. And GLP-1s lower ghrelin levels. That's why people say that they're not constantly thinking about food anymore because they don't have that high of a ghrelin level. And then there's CCK, which is cholecystokinin. It's released when you eat protein and fat, and it signals fullness and it slows down your digestion. GLP-1 enhances CCK signaling and slows gastric emptying, which means that fullness lasts longer. So the two different GIP or GLP peptides that you guys probably already know about is semaglutide and tirzepatide. The semaglutide is just the GLP-1, where the tirzepatide is the GLP-1 plus the GIP. So you're going to get a little bit better bang for your buck with the tirzepatide because of the improved fat metabolism, and it has reduced side effects. It doesn't cause as much nausea in some patients, so it's better tolerated. So most people start on GLP-1s at the lowest dose, like when they're prescribed. So the normal semaglutide dose that if you would go to a doctor you would get is 0.25 milligrams, and you would inject that sub-Q every week, and on the fourth week you would go up to the next dose. So you go to 0.25, then you go up to 0.5, then 1, 1.7, 2.4, and you would just progress every 4 weeks until you're up to the full dose. And when you increase it that quickly, you're going to get a lot of side effects, and that's where a lot of people are coming into issues with nausea, constipation, and they're really losing a lot of muscle mass and eventually some bone mass from that is because it's lowering the appetite suppression too quickly. Like I have clients that just don't even want to eat. So they're under eating, and when they're under eating, that's actually ruining their metabolism even more because they're not consuming enough food to fuel their metabolism to make the ATP that Chrissy talked about. And then they're losing muscle on top of that. So what we do at Rafa is we microdose. So microdosing means that we are still going to use very low doses. We're going to start at the lowest dose, but we may inject and split that dose over the week. So let's say if the normal starting dose of semaglutide is 0.25 milligrams once a week, I'm going to split it and I'm going to give it 1.25 milligrams twice a week. So we're going to have more of a steady state of the peptide. We're going to have less nausea symptoms. And I don't go up quickly. I would have them stay here for 8 to 12 weeks. My good thing is if you're losing weight, and you're not hungry, we are not increasing the dose because it's working. It's doing what it needs to do to help you lose weight while it's helping with the insulin sensitivity and the leptin resistance. Another way of doing microdosing is actually giving a low dose, but every 10 to 14 days. So some people, even at like the 0.25 milligram dose, may say, when I give myself the dose the next week, I'm still not very hungry. So I would say, well, let's wait out a couple more days before you would give it, and maybe give it in 10 to 14 days. And then when I have people that are on maintenance and are kind of not, they've reached their goals or they're happy where they are, but they don't want the food noise to come back, we'll do a maintenance phase where we are dosing every 21 to 28 days because the half-life of the drug is actually 28 days. So once you inject, yeah, it's still going to last you a long time. So there's no need to go go the dosing too close together or increasing it every 4 weeks like they recommend because you're going to ruin your metabolism more doing that way. Okay, so the average time that people stay on a GLP-1 is actually 12 to 18 months. I recommend committing to at least 6 months if you do want to go on them for meaningful and lasting metabolic changes. Some will go into like a maintenance microdose every 14 to 28 days, and others, I have them take a drug holiday. We'll actually have breaks where we're going to come off of the drug and we're going to see how you do. How is your hunger cues? How are you doing with maintaining your weight? And then we'll just work on being off the drug maybe for the summer. And then we'll go back on starting at the low dose again, just so we don't get too used to the medications. Um, the amount of weight that people will lose with semaglutide is about 12 to 15% of total body weight. So that's important. It's total body weight, not just fat mass, but it's total body weight. And that's over 12 to 16 months. So if you weigh 200 pounds, it's about 24 to 30 pounds that you can lose, which is a pretty significant amount. Where tirzepatide, you're going to get a little bit more weight loss, and that's about 15 to 22% of your total body weight. And that's again in 12 to 18 months. So again, if you weigh 200 pounds, that's 30 to 44 pounds, which that can get some people to their goal weight of like, I want to be 160s, in that range, which is a lot healthier than 200s. The average cost for like a semaglutide from microdosing can be about $200 to $350 a month. It depends which dose we're doing. The benefit of microdosing too is we're using lower amounts of the drug, so we can make it last longer and it's not as expensive. Tirzepatide, because it does have those two peptides in it, it's a combo one. It is a little bit more expensive, but again, you get more weight loss. So tirzepatide can cost $350 to $500 a month, depending on what hormone you are on or what peptide you're on. So at Rafa, we use compound pharmacies to make these medications and they get sent straight to your house. So we don't usually use the drug companies like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro because insurance doesn't pay for these medications very well for the weight loss industry. They're usually only covered if you have diabetes. And if you do truly have diabetes, your dosing is different than what we're talking about right now. What the dosing that we're talking about right now is just for metabolic health and cardiovascular inflammation, not necessarily diabetes, because you would definitely need a higher dose to get your A1C down. Okay. And again, microdosing technically isn't FDA approved right now. So you would be using it off label but literally we're just using the lowest dose. And honestly, in practice, I always if blood pressure medicines were too high, we would cut the dose in half. Like, I guess that's not still FDA approved, but we would still do it. We're not going to make them bottom out if they're not tolerating the medication. So are GLP-1 safe? Yes, they are safe, but when used correctly and at the right dose, they're not safe for people who have a thyroid cancer history, pancreatitis, whether that's acute or chronic, reflux symptoms if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. So reflux symptoms aren't necessarily a contraindication, but if you're already having GERD and taking Prilosec, and I'm going to give you a peptide that's going to make food sit in your stomach longer, you're not going to like me because you're going to feel awful. So I would work on some gut healing things first before we would put you on that. And a big one is these medications can make you constipated. So if I'm making you constipated and slowing down your GI tract, it's not gonna work very well. So you're gonna feel more miserable. So we do screenings and making sure you're a good fit for the medication. So I want to talk about the cardiovascular and anti-inflammatory benefits. So the GLP-1 and GIP medications don't just suppress appetite, they improve insulin signaling and reduce inflammation. We see improvements in blood pressure, triglycerides, endothelial function, and CRP levels, which is an inflammatory marker. So what's important is that many of these cardiovascular and anti-inflammatory benefits occur even at the low doses, often before dramatic weight loss even happens. That's why microdosing can still be metabolically powerful without pushing aggressively on the appetite suppression. So I get this question, will they help when nothing else has helped in the past? And I would say, yes, these can absolutely help, but they're not magic. If your body is stuck due to stress, hormone imbalance, or gut inflammation, these meds can give your biology a chance to reset while we work on the underlying root causes. Will I regain the weight back? You may regain weight after stopping, but not because you failed. If muscle stress and insulin resistance aren't fixed, the weight will return. That's why we treat the root cause alongside the peptide. We have to be working on the lifestyle. We have to be working on your gut and your adrenals to make sure all of those root causes are fixed as we're using these medications because they're just tools. They're not going to fix it all. So how do we actually fix those things then? So if you want the results to last, you have to fix what's underneath. That means eating for blood sugar balance, rebuilding lost muscle, regulating your nervous system, and we can do adrenal and cortisol testing for that. you need to heal your gut, we would use like the 5R protocol. And if you haven't watched one of our other free trainings on that, we've done the gut brain access talk that goes deep into that. We can also do GI testing, and elimination diet is another great tool that you can do to help heal your gut. And then the balanced macros. So Christy talked about that at the very beginning, is the fat, carbs, and proteins. You really do want to make sure those are balanced and figuring out what your spread is and how to eat. Because if you're eating just sugar all day long, these medications are not going to work forever. So in functional medicine, we don't chase symptoms, we treat systems. The GLPs are a tool that creates space so your body can focus on healing. So think of them like a crutch when you sprain an ankle. They help you move forward while your biology repairs. We still have to do the real work with physical therapy and walking to get the ankle to repair. That's the same thing with the GLP medications. You still have to do the underlying work of learning, like if you've been eating the standard American diet, and that's why you have the metabolic disease in the first place, we have to help you understand how to eat clean, and the correct macro spread. So what do you track when you are on these peptides? And this is important. Besides your weight on the scale, that's not the only thing we're going to be watching. We track your fasting insulin, your blood sugar levels, your leptin levels. And yes, you can have your leptin level checked. So if you're here, a leptin level under 10 to 15 is often more metabolically flexible. So that means that's a decent level. A leptin over 20, especially with high body fat, that's a possible leptin resistance. And my kind of cutoff is like 17. I like to see it under 17, but also you can have it too low. So if your leptin level is too low, it can signal that you're under eating or you've been doing excess dieting. And that's actually, you don't want to have it be too low. You want to have it right in the middle. So your fasting insulin, I always want my clients to be less than 7. Fasting glucose, 70 to 90s is a good area. Again, once you start to creep up in the high 90s, even though it's normal, you're still getting into more of the metabolic disease. For A1C, I like my clients to be 5.4, a little bit below. I still feel like once you get to be 5.5, 5.6, it's a little bit too close for me in the pre-diabetic range, and I don't like that. I want them to be a little bit lower than that. And then the HS-CRP, which is the inflammatory marker, you definitely want less than 1. So some ways besides the blood work that you can get done, and you can get this done through insurance. I have this covered all the time to get it done through insurance with your provider. So definitely get those checked to see what yours are. When you're on these medications, you also want to be tracking your muscle mass, your visceral fat, and your bone density. So the ways you can do that is if you have a DEXA scan, that gives you a lot of great information. That's actually the best one to do, is actually like you're getting your bones checked, but it's checking all the other things. So DEXA scan is really good. I personally use a Hume scale, so it will be able to do all the things from my home. Or if you are a member of a gym, they usually have like an in-body scan or a STICU, which will measure your muscle mass, your visceral fat, and your bone density. And the reason why we want to monitor these is, like I said, the appetite suppression from these medications are strong. And when you're not eating, your body is going to start to lose fat and muscle. So your skeletal muscle mass, this is optimal for women, actually, not men. This is women's results. So depending on your age, so if you're in your 40s, you should have 75 to 85 pounds of muscle. And those scales can actually check that. For visceral fat, there's this fat that's just around the abdomen that can excrete hormones like estrogen, and it causes a lot of disease. You want that to be less than 10% of your body fat. That's your goal. And fat mass for women, I'm gonna shoot for this for the healthy average. 25 to 31% we should have is fat mass, and we're gonna have more than men because we need 10 to 13% as essential fat to make our hormones and survive. For men, they can do with less and 18 to 24%. And those are the numbers that you really want to be tracking, not just the number on the scale, because when you lose weight, you can also be losing that muscle mass and not just fat mass. So GLP-1s can lower your appetite, they can calm inflammation, and they can help you finally see movement on the scale, which is great. But they do not heal your gut. They do not fix cortisol dysfunction. They do not rebuild lost muscle, and they do not retrain your metabolism completely. If you don't learn how to do those things, you'll always be depending on something outside of you. If you really want the lasting change, here's what to happen instead. You have to heal your gut. It might look like doing an elimination diet, looking for food sensitivities, detoxing molds, metals, or parasites if they're present, rebuilding your microbiome with the right nutrients and probiotics. You'll have to calm your adrenals. If your cortisol is high or flatlined, your body does not feel safe losing the weight, and that's a big thing. That means testing. So here at the bottom is a cortisol test that you can do. It's literally you spit in a tube and send it off, and we can see what your cortisol is throughout the day. And your cortisol is responding to your nervous system. So it gives us a lot of insight of your nervous system regulation, and how much you're pushing because we use your cortisol if it's too high or too low. You would want to adjust your workouts as well if your goal is weight loss in the end. And you have to learn how to train smarter. There's great tools. Me and Christy both wear the Oura rings that we can track our heart rate variability, and it gives us insight of how to push and when to recover. Are we going to do a harder workout this day, or am I going to go take a nap this day instead? It gives us great insight because, again, these are nervous system signals. So all of those are reasons why I actually created the 35 weight loss blueprint, because most women don't just need a medication, they need a blueprint. They need a program to help them understand how to implement all of these things. And these are actually all the things that I've done to lose 55 pounds so far with addressing the root cause of it's taken me 3 years, but I've done it slowly. So 1 pound a month is really kind of my goal for weight loss, is slow, very slow weight loss because it's more sustainable. But inside my program, we test and we don't guess. We look at cortisol patterns, fasting insulin, inflammation markers. We address gut dysfunction with elimination diet protocols and proper detox support. We rebuild muscles intentionally with progressive overload programming, which means we're lifting heavier. We personalize macros and protein goals so you're fueling your metabolism and not starving it. And we use HRV to guide workouts so you're not overtraining and wrecking your nervous system along the way. And when it makes sense, we layer in the peptide support, but it's not as a shortcut, not as a band-aid, which I feel like a lot of women who do peptides, they kind of like get that kind of shame from it, like, oh, you're on peptides. That's the easy way out to do it. But we use it as a tool for a bigger strategy. So this is a root cause weight loss program, and it helps repair your metabolism. So the results will stick. So in the program is a 6-month program, and you get a bunch of different educational modules sent out throughout the 6 months. You get 12 weeks of meal plans and recipes. The adrenal testing is included. You get 3 private one-on-one appointments with me. You get 3 months of supplements that are included. And we do twice a month group coaching calls with the other women that are there to ask questions. But I also will check on you once a week. I'll review your weight and I'll review your food journal. So I'm looking at actually what you're eating, making sure that your macros are spread appropriately. And if not, we can tweak them sooner than later so you can actually continue to see the goals. So if you're ready for real structure and real support, here's what the process looks like. First, you complete a short application. This helps me understand your history, your goals, and what you've already tried. Next, we would schedule the free root cause assessment call. On that call, we review your symptoms and identify what's actually driving your weight resistance, whether that's cortisol, insulin, gut issues, low muscle mass, or hormonal shifts. Then we outline what your personal plan would look like inside the 35 weight loss blueprint. And we'll discuss whether you're a good fit, what the investment is, and what the timeline looks like. And I'm going to drop the link where you can learn more about that. Maybe, maybe not. Why can I highlight? Okay. I'll do that in a second. Okay. And Chrissy's going to talk about our other packages.
So I have referred many patients to Amy's weight loss program. She spent a lot of work and a lot of time in creating that, and it's very successful. We both, in addition, have, because we're functional medicine nurse practitioners, we both have the ability to work with patients of all different kinds of modalities and with all different kinds of disease diagnoses or health struggles. We're both background in family medicine, so family medicine is very comprehensive. So we both also work with patients one-on-one with packages. We like to start out with either a 3 or a 6-month package when we're working with an individual. We call these intensive packages, where again, we do that very detailed health history, we do that symptoms checklist, and we're seeing you that first visit. We're giving a very comprehensive overview. We're creating a map for you where we're putting those puzzle pieces together behind the scenes, even before we meet. Um, Ordering those functional medicine testing or this advanced blood work that we, get through the insurance companies. And then we function as the clinical expert, but also like the health coach. And so there is that one-on-one support through our system. Practice Better, we are able to instant message. Our patients can instant message us in real time. They're using journals. They can journal their food, their sleep, their activity, how they feel that day. So it's just ongoing support and accountability, personalized testing, following up every 2 months, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on what the individual need is. And we can support people with all different kinds of concerns. Definitely gut dysmotility is our specialty. Anybody with digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel syndrome, anything going on in the gut. Oh, oh, okay, I see. Yeah,
Yeah, this
so
it goes over all the ones that we treat.
yeah, yeah. So hormone replacement therapy, menopause, perimenopause, bad PMS, fertility support, both for men and women with hormonal imbalances, certainly thyroid and autoimmune support. We both have experience with autoimmune disease of all different kinds. We have a subspecialty where we've done training with children that have brain inflammation, specifically PANS and PANDAS. If you don't know what that is, you have to look that up. But anything with brain inflammation, including autism and ADHD, we work with children a lot, and their parents. I mentioned the gut health, definitely environmental, chronic illness, mold toxicity, Lyme disease, cardiovascular, osteoporosis. And sometimes people just consult with us because they want to live the longest that they can live and feel the best that they can feel throughout their lifespan, which is a great goal. And we certainly can help with that as well. And then brain and mood. I kind of consider brain inflammation also to include mood disorders like anxiety and depression, bipolar, fatigue, fibromyalgia. I have a lot of experience with fibromyalgia as I've had it myself. And then cognitive issues. And interestingly, the GIP2 has been studied for Alzheimer's disease as well. So there's some neat things going on with these medications being studied for other kinds of diagnoses and situations.
Right, because they're saying dementia is type 3 diabetes.
Yep. And after somebody graduates from our initial program, then we have yearly programs where we can work with individuals. Sometimes I have a once a year one, twice a year, every 3 months we meet, just depending on the need again. And we're able to manage medications that way. So ongoing prescription management, monitoring the blood work, making those dose adjustments. Some common things would be like thyroid medications. We obviously do things differently than in traditional medicine, where you're kind of just getting that standard of care and everybody's fitting into that box and everybody's getting the same medications, but they're not really feeling well. Certainly, hormone replacement therapy. We use a lot of bioidentical hormones through compounding pharmacies. We'll monitor blood pressure medications. We always use the safest, lowest effective doses, looking at the potential side effects for those things, and then metabolic medications and peptides.
Yeah, so I actually prescribe the peptides the most in the practice. And besides the GLP and GIP ones that we talked about today, there are actually some other peptides out there that people are using for longevity, for feeling better and improving their health. So, like if you've heard of GCG or ipamorelin, tesamorelin, PC-157, MOTS. Those are all the other types of peptides that are out there that help with shrinking visceral fat, with improving muscle mass quicker. So those are also some nice tools that you can use. And if you are looking for that specifically, then I have specific appointments just for that, where we can dive right into looking into those, as well as healing the other root cause things as well.
Yeah, NAD is another one, and that's a hot
Yes.
topic for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And I
And I
do
do too.
NAD as well. So that's a good one.
Yeah, so if you're interested in working with us, this is the first way to do it. Besides the 35 weight loss blueprint where you would apply, the other one is if you're interested in working in any other way, you would schedule a free root cause assessment, and we'll review your system, identify root cause drivers, and discuss your personal plan and determine which package would be their best for you based on your goals. So some people are like, I really just want to do this one test and that's it. Okay, then we can work on that. Others will need, depending on their conditions as well. Like if we have more autoimmune disease or more complex cases, you're going to need more time with us for healing. So that's what we discuss in the free root cause. So by booking the free root cause assessment, that's how you get in to work with us at Rafa Functional Wellness. We'll send you the link to sign up and get you started with your first appointment. Okay, so this is, you guys all made it, and there's still 11 people here. That's good. So this is the 7 steps to lose 10 pounds in 8 weeks. I'm dropping that link right now, and you guys can click on that. And I just want to go over one more thing. We have a couple of events going on. If you're in the Toledo, Ohio area, Chrissy is actually doing another talk at Fit Body Boot Camp on this Saturday at 10 o'clock, where she's talking about gut health, and actually is a free workout included with this. So that's a great event. April 26th, from 1 to 4. She's going to be a vendor at the Grand Rising Experience in Maumee, Ohio. And then also April 28th, I actually will be in town for this one as well. We're doing the in Wellness retreat at the Franciscan Center at the Lourdes College. And that one is more, there's a cost to that, which is, I think, 75 is the correct amount.
Which is
So
well worth it, and I highly recommend that one.
yeah, there's a bunch of vendors and speakers there. So it's kind of like all of the holistic providers and companies within the area come to this event to speak and to showcase their services to everybody. And you'll learn a lot. There's a lot of good speakers there. All right. Any questions for us about metabolism, insulin, GLPs, or really anything in general? We're here to talk. I'm going to stop sharing my screen too.
Amy, what do you think was the most impactful thing that you've done for your metabolism? Because I know you've struggled, and I've struggled as well with I was overweight my whole life as well. What do you think was the thing that kind of tipped the scale for you and started to get you some momentum going? Do you think it was the peptides?
Well, Mm, not really, because I did, like, again, it was over 3 years and I've done different things slowly. The elimination diet that I did for, I can't remember now. It's like either 6 or 9 months I did an elimination diet. And that was the most impactful for me to know actually how my body was responding to food. And I felt like I reduced my inflammation the most by reducing that. I wouldn't say at that point I really knew how to spread my macros very well, because I was just eating clean and not necessarily, like, I was sticking to the dietary guidelines and not necessarily knowing, did I eat enough protein that day? I wasn't really counting that. The next thing that really, I kind of stalled out once I started to add foods back. And then I was really into working out and I was running, like I was really getting into running, which I enjoyed, but I was like so tired in the afternoon. I did cortisol testing and I realized, well, my cortisol is way too high. I'm stressing myself. I was waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to go do these workouts. It was not what my body needed at that time. So learning how to listen to my body and do the
Mhm.
nervous system support and like take a nap and just go for a walk and do something else like that was helpful. And then that kind of stalled out for a little bit. So it's been in like phases. And then the GI have been helpful just to quiet the food noise as I'm learning how to lift heavy and balance my macros again. So I would say it's all been there. Said, could you put back up the slides with all the upcoming events? Yes, I can do that.
Yes, the GLPs and the GIPs absolutely helps with the sugar cravings. And sugar cravings can be multifactorial. It can be, as I mentioned, because of low blood sugars and just not having that good stable glycemic index through the day. And so always starting the day with high protein, and fat just to kind of keep blood sugars stable, always pairing your carbohydrates with a protein, never having just a plain carbohydrate snack or meal. Um, Sometimes sugar cravings can be because of overgrowth, especially candida overgrowth. Um, and lastly, sometimes it's because of neurotransmitter. We eat sugar and carbohydrates, because of dopamine. We want that, we need that dopamine hit sometimes in our brain. So, what we do is we're always trying to figure out why. Why are you experiencing the sugar cravings? What is the root cause? And then trying to address that. But just as a general statement, I definitely would say GLPs and GIPs do help with sugar cravings.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it's a weird thing. Like when you do take them, you just don't have like there could be a pizza or candy set in front of you and you're like, I'm just good. I don't need to eat that. I'm not even hungry. The ghrelin's not there saying eat that, eat that. The leptin signaling is getting relooped, which is nice. So Sherry asks, what is the reason it's contraindicated with a history? It's a specific type of thyroid cancer. It's like a medullary thyroid cancer. So there's just an increased risk of that thyroid cancer coming back if you've had it. You're welcome. Are any of you on GLP-1s? Curious to know that. Amanda's a yes. Amanda, have you ever done microdosing?
Yes, she has.
Has she? Okay.
Yeah, we just started.
Oh, cool.
And I actually do microdosing. I start less than what you start with. I actually start with zero point 0.6 because that's what I actually use these GLPs recently as well. Because I wanted to try them. I wanted to experience it so that I could experience it for my patients. And Amy and I both took an education through a light nurse practitioner training on the microdosing. And so yeah, I start at zero point 0.6 with my patients. And for some of us, I didn't never had to increase it. Like you're saying,
Mm,
if you're losing weight, you don't need to do anything. So zero point 0.6 worked for me and I never increased it. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it's pretty cool. And then you do save a lot of money when you can microdose too.
Yeah, because that vial vial lasts a long time. So
Hmm.
it does work a lot longer. Yeah, if I dose and I notice when it's coming to my next time, even if I'm trying to microdose and do like the twice a week dosing, I will still do that lower 1.125 milligram dose, but still reach it. I've done up to 3 weeks and still not feel that hungry. Because when you are you get to a point where you've been on the medication too, where you do kind of want to feel hungry again. Like it does kind of get boring after a while. Like I'm never hungry and like you want to have that hunger in the morning of like, oh, I would like to eat. So I can get all the macros in because if you're on it at a too high of a dose, then you're not going to want to eat and then you're going to struggle to get in your macros. So it definitely is a balance that you want to take the food noise away, but not take your appetite away completely.
Well, and I love what you said about you can actually destroy your metabolism more by
Yeah.
starving yourself. And I think that might be I'm sure that's what's happening with some of these influencers or,
Well, these weight loss clinics where you can get the drug for cheap and you're just literally filling out a form and they're sending you the drug with no education behind it of how to change the lifestyle issues that you have that got you into being overweight in the first place and addressing the underlying causes. So that's why whenever someone works with me, we're reviewing all of those things that you have to do both of those.
yes. And
And
well, both,
if you're not weightlifting from me, I won't prescribe the drug.
I was
I'm
just going to say that. Yep.
Yeah,
Same.
you have to be weightlifting.
We have to be in agreement on that. Yep.
Yeah.
We have to look at the other lifestyle things too. So,
Yeah.
well, you're welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and reach out to us if you have any other questions or concerns.
You're welcome. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
All right. Bye, Christy.
See
See
ya.
you later.